Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the West Lindsey series. This is one of the 9 districts of Lincolnshire and one of the county's most rural. It has 128 civil parishes. Let's see which one this episode's all about. Okay, today for you in West Lindsey, I've got the biggest parish that this district has got in terms of population. Trust me, even though it doesn't look like it where I'm stood right now, this is high above the town on a hill which overlooks it. It's not a bad view up here actually. We're looking towards Bassetlaw where we are here. Let's go down this path and see what we can find in the town of Gainsborough. The West Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop, located at 20 Ropery Road or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. I think my disclaimer might be a little wrong today. I'm most certainly not visiting this one for the first time. I went to school here, I've worked here, and I lived here for a while. That said, I still found out things I never knew about good old G-Town as it's known. Our route starts at one of the 2 railway stations in West Lindsey's largest town, Gainsborough Lee Road. Despite the name of the other station being Gainsborough Central, Lee Road is Gainsborough's main station. From here, you can reach Lincoln, Doncaster and Sheffield with relative ease. Lee Road opened in 1867 on a single line of the Great Northern Railway, who ran 4 trains a day from Gainsborough to Lincoln. We'll see Gainsborough Central, the original station in the town, later. And this is the road it's named after. Lee Road connects Gainsborough to the village of Lee, just to the south. As I mentioned in that episode, the line between the two has become quite blurred. We're heading up into the town centre via a few notable landmarks. Gainsborough has plenty of history in various guises, and some of the more recent stuff I'm able to remember. So here's a memory for me straight away. Behind me there's a B&Q. That used to be Focus DIY. It used to be the meeting point for me and some of my friends when we were going off doing things in the local area using our cars. I'm sure other people remember it as Focus too, but of course they've now gone out of business and it's now B&Q. So what's Gainsborough all about then? Well, it's a market town and historically an inland port on the River Trent. All those villages we've seen along the Trent have had connections to it. The town steadily grew during the 17th century. Gainsborough achieved the status of a port in 1841, and with the railways came Marshall, Sons & Co., a major agricultural machinery maker. Marshalls, along with William Rose, the inventor of the first packaging machine, vied with each other to employ the engineering talents of the local people. It's undergone a lot of changes in recent decades. For a start, look here at Carr Lane. This used to be Edlington Graders, who manufactured agricultural machinery and vegetable grading equipment. That comes as no surprise, given Gainsborough's industrial past and the landscape that surrounds it. Remember, West Lindsey has for centuries been very much an agricultural area. It appears Gainsborough has its own areas of vegetation. Here on Ashcroft Road, I came across this little area. It's a rhubarb garden. Before we go any further, let's see some more basic information. Gainsborough is full of old, almost otherworldly at times, buildings. There are lots that have been repurposed as well, as Gainsborough is going through something of a renaissance. Take X Church for example on Ashcroft Road, formerly the Church of St John the Divine. This helps young people and those with mental illnesses. I've linked their Facebook page. Gainsborough's history predates Roman times, but it was probably the Anglian Gainas tribe who in the 6th century first settled on the site of what is now the present-day town. Believe it or not, Gainsborough used to be the capital of England, albeit for just 5 weeks in the year 1013. That's thanks to the Dane Sweyn Forkbeard and his son and heir Canute and their army. Sweyn would defeat the Anglo-Saxons and was declared King of England. Sweyn and Canute took up high office at Gainsborough Castle. We've just come down Waterwork Street, back to Lee Road. The building you see here is Lee Road School. Built in 1906, it was an infant school before being converted to a business centre in the 90s. It's been boarded up for as long as I can recall. So before I came here today, I asked the Gainsborough locals for some landmarks that I may have missed on my route that I planned before I came. And one thing that I did miss was nibbles, and I promised I'd give them a wave. Hi. On the opposite side of the road to the school used to be Lee Road Baths. I've included a picture of those in today's picture bit. Let's head for Trent Bridge next. Crossing Trent Bridge into Nottinghamshire wasn't always free. There are 2 lodges on either side of the bridge. These are former toll houses. These days though, you can cross free of charge. The crossing over the Trent has been important for centuries. It was even here as far back as when the Romans were around. Much like Kidby Bridge, this is still a vital link between the riverbanks. Gainsborough has no shortage of educational establishments. The Bridge Learning Centre is one of these. Clip are based here, which holds a weekly job club on Friday mornings. Then we have the United Services Club, which is linked to the Riverside Room seen here. The Riverside Room is ideal for any event, and it can be hired out. Originally a school for girls, the United Services Club's main building was purchased in 1920 and it opened in 1921 for ex-servicemen. Open 5 days a week. Their website is also linked below. Okay, the route now goes down Thornton Street through a kind of an industrial area. We're heading for Trinity Street. It's a very important road here in Gainsborough. In front of you here is Gainsborough Maltings. The town has a long history with malting, the processing of barley for the brewing of beer. The maltings here supplied Tetley Walker Limited. Called Sanders Maltings, it was a large brick-built complex lying between Bridge Street and the eastern bank of the River Trent. We'll see what remains of the maltings after Trinity Street. Trinity Street is one of the town's most important roads. It links the A631 to the town centre. In a small village, this would pass for a busy high street. It has a lot of buildings we need to look at. First up, we have the Holy Trinity Church Institution, located at the junction of Trinity Street and Clinton Terrace. Built in 1878, it closed in 1968. Keep that name in mind for a moment. Next, we have Drury and Wealden, established in 1879. This is a family-run independent auction house. For over 100 years, they've been auctioning livestock, farmsteads, land and properties. The town's rising 19th century population called for a second church to the main All Saints Church we'll see later. Holy Trinity was the result, and it's now the Trinity Arts Centre. Speaking of theatres, feast your eyes on the King's Theatre, which opened as the Albert Hall in 1885 and was largely rebuilt internally after a fire in 1927. According to locals, it's opening again soon after a period of closure. Just a few paces away, this next thing will show my age. I'm old enough to remember the town's Tesco supermarket being built here. Originally, my route was to go down Tor Street, but then I remembered that would potentially miss the bus station. By going down Etherington Street, we also get the Salvation Army building. Arriving on Heaton Street, we also get this. This is the Millennium Clock, installed in 1999 by the bus station, and it was unveiled by the Prince of Wales. There are far too many buses to list that run to and from Gainsborough, but this is where they all terminate. I've always thought Gainsborough needs a bigger bus station. A walk down Wembley Street brings us to this building, ACES, the local housing association. This is right across the road from the banks of the Trent, and more importantly, Whitton's Mill. Now, I got a message from a follower who told me that from the top of Whitton's mill there's a brilliant view. Let's go and knock on the door and let's see if I can find the building manager. Whitton's mill is a block of flats, and one of the current residents is another relation of mine, my uncle on my dad's side. I was lucky enough to be allowed access to the roof for this next part. Whitton's mill won a Royal Town Planning Institute Award for the East Midlands. It's not hard to see why when you can see views like this over the Trent and into Nottinghamshire. The balcony I was on at first is communal, but this one can only be accessed through the boiler room. As such, this is likely a rarely seen view of Gainsborough. My thanks must go to Ashley Talbot and his mother for this. Back out of Whitton's mill, we're heading for Riverside Walk next via 7-foot lane. Until the Riverside Walk was built in the 1990s, it used to lead straight down to the Trent. It also served at one point in its history as a foul gents toilet. From it, we can see Whitton's mill in all its glory. According to the building manager, it's the tallest building in Gainsborough. You can't not mention the Eiger here either. As mentioned before, it's a tidal bore along the Trent which attains a height of several feet at the time of the spring tides. I've never seen one though. Renovation of the town's riverbanks was completed in 2002. It gave rise to the Riverside Festival, an annual arts and heritage event that ran here until 2013. There are some further plans for this area. Costing £2.3 million, this whole area has a plan in place that will transform it even further. It includes a full redevelopment of Whitton's Gardens and a new pocket park at Baltic Mill. Now we're on Casgate Street. You're looking at Casgate Street Surgery, also known as Ellswither Hall. This is the birthplace of Halford John Mackinder, founder of the Geographical Association. I have no idea what this shot was all about. I think I was trying to capture the back of the 8 Jolly Brewers, but it's not very clear. It does at least show that Gainsborough has a lot of car parking. Time to go up into the town centre, and the first landmark to see here is the Sweyn Forkbeard, Gainsborough's Wetherspoons pub. I'll be honest, I've downed a few in there in my time. At 29 Silver Street is the White Horse, and while we're on the subject of pubs, I found a plaque on the side of the Sweyn Forkbeard which tells a little bit more about them. Now, there aren't many pubs left in Gainsborough these days, but according to this plaque, there used to be quite a lot. Look at this. Old Gainsborough pubs. Opposite the chapel staithe stood the Brown Cow Public House, marking the start of Bridge Street. Over 20 pubs could have been located in this street alone. Plaque erected by the Delvers. Certainly aren't 20 pubs on this street anymore. Anyway, we're heading up into the market square. Now, it's a Tuesday today. Apparently, that means it's market day. Let's see if we can find a bargain or two. A weekly market was granted by King John to Gainsborough in 1204. These days, Gainsborough hosts a bustling open-air general market every Tuesday and Saturday right in the centre of town. This is another area of the town that's slated for redevelopment, which will include refurbishment of the town hall, which overlooks the market square. Costing £6.7 million, the town centre can expect to see a new 4-screen cinema, some new shops and a new restaurant, and the creation of 33 new jobs by the end of 2024. Around onto Lord Street, we see the 18th century White Hart Hotel. This is an old coaching inn previously called the Fleur de Lys and was Gainsborough's principal for many years. After nipping through an alleyway, we're on Cobden Street outside the library. This opened in 1905, was administered by the Urban District Council and held some 1,800 books. Gainsborough Old Hall opposite is over 500 years old and is one of the best preserved medieval manor houses in England. By far, this is the town's biggest and best tourist attraction. The hall was built by Sir Thomas Burgh in 1460. The Burghs were rich, flamboyant and powerful. It was not only their home but also a demonstration of their wealth and importance. Architecturally, it has changed very little over the years. A timber frame building, it has a characteristic striped or black and white appearance. On the northeast corner is a brick tower. There are 59 steps to the top of that tower. The cenotaph is right outside. This, the Old Hall, and the nearby All Saints Parish Church are within Gainsborough's central conservation area. After a brief pit stop at Gainsborough Cycles, where I recorded the advert at the start of this video, I'm now on Ackland Street and outside Gainsborough College. Around the back of the college is a park. Officially called the Memorial Park, this is known as the Levellings. This is one of 3 sports grounds we'll be seeing. Next though, I've got all the allotment fans covered today with these on Love Lane. There are loads more in the town, but these were specifically asked for by one follower. Okay, so now we're heading up Ropery Road, which is a very long, straight road which leads to Morton, and I'm going to walk the full length of it. I don't think I've ever done this before. So, Ropery Road, a long straight road with a name that tells of its past. A ropery made rope, and Gainsborough had one for all those boats that would travel down the Trent. These days, Ropery Road is mainly housing, but interspersed with that are some fascinating old buildings, like for example Mercer's Wood Academy, which used to be North County Primary School. Off Ropery Road is North Warren Road. After passing the Warren Family Centre, we come to Rose's Sports Ground. This is where Gainsborough Rugby Club is based. Next door is Eminox, founded in 1978. Originally, they built exhausts for local bus companies. They also now make low-emission catalytic systems for the London Low Emission Zone. Back to Ropery Road, and at number 370 is Gladstone House Club. This was formerly Gainsborough and District CIU Liberal Club. There was a Conservative club in town too, but this route doesn't pass it. It does pass, though, a dissenters cemetery, in the centre of which used to be an octagonal chapel built of grey bricks bearing the name Tomlinson, whose brickyard was at Walkeringham. Now, as far as hospitals go here, if you need one, your nearest one is Lincoln County Hospital or Scunthorpe. There is a hospital here in Gainsborough, John Coupland, and it's right there. But it doesn't have an A&E, and it's only got a minor injuries unit, or at least that's how I thought it was. I've just seen Urgent Treatment Centre over there. It might have changed now. After a brief trip into and back out of Morton, we're at one of the top state schools in the country, Queen Elizabeth's High School, a selective state grammar school which features a sixth form. This was where I went to school. In my time, there were 3 secondary schools in Gainsborough. The other 2, Middlefield and Castle Hills, merged to form one school, which we'll drive to later. Gainsborough's police station is over the road. A modern building, this replaced a much older building and a much smaller building close to Marshall's Yard in the 1970s. And right next door to QEHS is Richmond Park, the site of Gainsborough's register office, and more than a few sixth formers from the school too on a regular basis. The house and grounds opened as a public park in 1947. Attractions include greenhouses, an aviary, and a 600-year-old oak tree. It may not be big, but it's a nice little sanctuary of calm. And where Morton Terrace meets Church Street is the Elm Cottage. The Tudor may be 1930s mock, but the building is genuinely old, probably over 200 years. Around the corner, and we're at Northholme. This is Gainsborough Trinity Football Club's home ground. Established in 1873, the club became members of the Football League in 1893. Gainsborough is one of the smallest towns in England to have had a Football League team. They're now in the Northern Premier League, the 7th tier of English football. Now we're on Church Street properly, and in front of us is the Old Plough Inn. The current building was built in 1921. It ceased to be a pub in 2007, and it became council offices. That brings us to the Church of All Saints. The first recorded evidence of a church at Gainsborough is in 1180. In 1736, it was demolished to make way for a new parish church completed in 1748. The design is attributed to Francis Smith of Warwick. All that remains of the medieval church is the West Tower, 90 feet high, with a ring of 8 bells. A monument to Richard Rollitt, master sailmaker on Captain James Cook's second voyage, is located in the porch, and there's a cafe that's run from here too. You probably wouldn't believe me when I tell you I've never been in there before. That's the first time ever I've set foot inside All Saints Church. Now, it's not the most interesting church here, because that comes in the form of one which is right next to it. That one over there. Let's go and find out why. Once again, it's separatist history. The United Reformed Church is the building in question, and it was built in 1897 as a memorial to John Robinson, who was known as the pastor to the Pilgrim Fathers. He was born in Sturton-le-Steeple in the late 1500s, and he was hugely instrumental in preparing for the voyage of the Pilgrim Fathers on the Mayflower in 1620. Over the road is the Horse and Jockey. This is described as a traditional and friendly town centre public house, and this is believed to date back to 1748. Man alive, there's way more to Gainsborough than I ever thought there was. Continuing down Church Street, this takes us back into the marketplace, but we're turning left down Market Street. Market Street continues with shops on both sides of the road. Arguably the biggest shopping area in Gainsborough is at the end of this road, Marshall's Yard. Also on Market Street is a meeting house, an old building where the Quakers have been meeting since 1705. Quakers, by the way, are also known as Friends, hence the name. Here's one building that certainly hasn't changed during my lifetime. This has always been Gainsborough Methodist Church, and it stands proud with its giant cross on North Street. I'm old enough to remember what used to be here though instead of this KFC. It used to be the location of Gainsborough Magistrates Court, which has stood here since 1975. Over the road is the Gainsborough Heritage Centre, which is the former post office. This is only open on Saturdays, but I imagine it's well worth the £3 entry fee. Down Cross Street is another church, hidden away on a quiet narrow lane. This is St Thomas Roman Catholic Church, and this leads us to perhaps the most requested building in this video. This is the Old Nick Theatre and Museum, a former police station and magistrates court, and it's a Grade 2 listed building. The main structure is over 160 years old. Remember Pilham Hall and Marshall Sons & Co, who manufactured agricultural machinery? Well, part of their Britannia Works site is now Marshall's Yard shopping precinct, seen right here. Now, as much as I would like to go into Marshall's Yard and film some of it, it's private property, and I've had it before where shopping centres don't really like the idea of cameras floating around. So I'm not going to risk it here. Instead, I'm going to go that away towards Gainsborough's other railway station, Gainsborough Central. In the past, this area would have been alive with the production of boilers, steamrollers and tractors. It's good to see some of the old buildings were kept and are now used as the shops. Gainsborough Central Station is on the Brigg branch of the Sheffield to Lincoln line. It has far fewer trains than Lee Road, but you can get to the seaside from this one. Well, Cleethorpes. A footpath from the station takes us around the back of Heapham Road Cemetery. We'll pass this again later in the car. The front is overlooked by Cox's Water Tower, built in the 1890s. Our route then crosses the A631 Thorndyke Way as we meander back towards the beginning. There's both a footbridge and a railway bridge side by side here over the road. All that's left to do now is walk down Sansfield Lane, which by the way was split into two parts when the A631 road was constructed. We've seen that before, usually with motorways though. Benjamin Adlard Primary School finishes the walking route off. There's way more to Gainsborough, but don't forget there's only so much I can put into one video. We're not quite done yet though. Okay, I'm back where I began about 3 hours ago. Nice 3-hour walk this around Gainsborough. It's getting warm now as well. This coat definitely needs to come off for the remainder of this video. First thing I'm going to give you is the picture bit before we carry on, and here that comes right now. So a little reduction in the amount of clothing I've got on, and we can carry on. Now, we've done the main walk and everything you've seen so far has been downhill. We haven't seen anything that's uphill, and that's where I'm going now. And the easiest way to do this is to put the camera on the dashboard and drive around it. Generally speaking, it's housing estates. We've got the Park Springs estate, we've got Whiteswood Lane, that kind of area there, everything out towards the leisure centre. So let's take a drive around the rest of Gainsborough. I've made a brief stop here on Park Springs Estate. A long time ago in Glentworth, I mentioned that there were some nodding donkeys in Gainsborough, and there are. Here we have one at the end of Park Springs Road. Let's get a bit closer to it. There you go. There he is, working away. Count them, four of them, none of them went the right way around the roundabout. That's ridiculous. And there you go, I'm back outside the old hall to finish this one off because I had to nip back to Gainsborough Cycles, which is literally just over the way over there, to sort out the sponsorship for the rest of the West Lindsey series. You may have noticed at the top I now have a sponsor for this series, Trevor Halstead at Gainsborough Cycles. He's a top bloke. If you need your bike repairing, I can't recommend him enough. That's where you need to be going. Time for me to move on to my next one in West Lindsey, and of course after this everywhere is smaller in this district. This is the biggest one that this one has got, so thankfully I'm not going to be spending another 3 hours walking around another place like I have done here. It's been totally enjoyable. It's been weird seeing my old school again. It's been weird seeing quite a lot of landmarks that I'm so familiar with again for the first time in quite a while, in fact. But there you have it. That's life, I suppose. It moves on quite quick, and people move to different places like I have to Rotherham, and you forget what's actually there, I suppose. After a while. This has been the parish of Gainsborough, the town of Gainsborough, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.